is a wonderful, beautiful morning outside. I'm very thankful for this beautiful sunny weather that we get to enjoy. Lord, today we have God's blessed us with beautiful sunny weather. High is 64 degrees. Now, I'm recording this on Friday, not Saturday. It could be rainy and miserable on Saturday. I don't know. But either way, it's still a great day, and we have a wonderful opportunity to serve the Lord. In the book of Acts, Acts chapter 24. In Acts chapter 24, Paul is finally brought to court, and he's brought to court before Felix, the governor, and he was the curators, if you will, of both Judah and Samaria. And while he was there, they came, and there was one man, Tertullus, and he came and he went ahead and he had his first accusations against Paul, and Paul gets to give a defense. At the end of the defense, Felix determines that Paul is of no danger. However, he hopes Paul will give him some money. Hopes Paul will give him some money to free him, so he actually detains Paul, but he allows Paul to have a lot more liberty than a regular prisoner. It says that he let him to have liberty, verse 23, that he should forbid none of his acquaintance to minister or come in unto him. So he was actually allowed to have liberty, and we'll find later on the end of this chapter that Paul was kept there for 2 whole years. Well, right in the middle of this, Felix brings his wife, Drusilla, and they come, and she was a Jewish. She was somebody who was a lady that was a Jew that desired to follow the Jewish teachings. And as she came in, he asked, and he said, "Paul, will you please expound to us? We want to hear you concerning the faith of Christ. We want to know what this Christ means. What is a Christian? What is this? What does it mean to be a Nazarene, as it says in verse 5 of the sect of Nazarene? What does that mean?" And so as he begins to elaborate to them, verse 25, it says he reasoned with them of righteousness. And I imagine Paul explained the fact that righteousness does not come through the law, it does not come through good behavior, it comes only by faith in Jesus Christ, as Paul explains in Romans. He explains to them of righteousness. And after righteousness is done, he teaches them about temperance. Temperance is self-control. He explains to them how that they're supposed to be temperate in all things, how they're supposed to be controlled, and not to be controlled by their lust and their flesh and their passions and even other people, but they're going to bring every thought under the subjection of Jesus Christ. This would have been very challenging to him, to Felix. It would have been very challenging to Felix because it points out to Felix the fact that his actions are not righteous, because all men's actions are not righteous. As a ruler of Rome, he would have been very exuberant in everything that he did, and he would have found out that he's not living temperate like he should, which meant the third thing that he reasoned with him about was the judgment to come. And so whenever he explained the fact that every man will give an account before God, that everyone will appear before the judgment seat of Christ, and that as Paul would appear before Felix, one day Felix would appear before Jesus Christ and give account of his righteousness and of his temperance, of his righteousness that was incomplete without Jesus Christ. And so whenever Felix heard about the judgment of God, whenever he heard about his condition, notice in verse 25 what it says that Felix did. Felix trembled and answered, "Go thy way, for this time, when I have convenient season, I will call for thee." Felix trembled. He was terrified. And I think it's kind of interesting how that whenever Paul preached Jesus Christ, and he preached the truth, and he reasoned with him and explained to him everything that was there, it confronted Felix with a response that he had to either respond in submission and subjection or rejection. And it says that Felix trembled. He was terrified. He was terrified of the truths that Paul had just explained, terrified of what had happened. And he said, "I'll send you away and I'll come back and tell again." And one of the things that is kind of sad in this is Felix sends him away, but we never have record of this conversation continuing with Felix. We see that Felix is replaced by Festus, and for 2 years Paul is continued to be held as a prisoner. For 2 years he has continued to be held by this governor here. And I think just kind of it's a sad thing how that Felix was so close. The Holy Spirit convicted Felix, I believe. That's why he trembled. He was afraid. He believed the truth. What do you mean he believed the truth? You wouldn't be afraid of something you don't believe what's being said. He was afraid that Paul was right. He reasoned and he understood it ins and outs, but yet he rejected. And it reminded me of just a couple of things. one of the things it reminds me of is, am I looking for opportunity to reason with other people? It reminded me that I need to be telling people about what God's done, explaining to other people what righteousness is and where righteousness comes from, explaining the need for temperance and what it is, why we should live temperate, explaining the fact that as a lost person, you are going to stand before the judgment seat of Christ, and you're not going to have any of your own righteousness to claim, because your righteousness is just filthy rags. There is no righteousness outside of Christ. And as a Christian, I'm going to be judged on my temperance and how I followed and served God. And I begin to step back and look at this and say, wow, I should be telling other people about these things. I should be reasoning with other people. The other reminder that it gave me was, one of these days, we are going to appear before the judgment seat of Christ. You and I are. I'm going to appear either as a son or I'm going to appear as an enemy. I'm going to stand as someone who has been made righteous, not because I'm righteous, but because Jesus Christ has made us righteous. Or I'm going to appear as someone who's never known his son. As a Christian, I'm going to have to give account of what I did and the reasons why I did things. One of these days, the judgment day will come. And as we look more and more around our world, we look at cities, we look at people trying to make individual countries in our own cities. We look at the riots. We look at the mass chaos that's going on. We look at the dearth of truth. We look at the dearth of honesty in our country. We see lives that are lived for temporal things. Help us to not live our life focused on what's going on in our world, but rather let's live our life focused on the fact that one of these days we are going to appear before the judgment seat of Christ. That's our job. In the Old Testament, one of the prophets said that it's our determination and we need to prepare to meet our God. One of these days we're going to meet him. Thank you once again for tuning in. I'd love to hear your thoughts from Acts chapter 24. If you have any, you can reply back, comment here in this video. And if you haven't liked or subscribed to the videos, take opportunity to do so. We will be continuing all the way through the book of Acts in our Thoughts from Quarantine. Once again, we are very thankful just that you would take the time to join and be part and to join with us. Tomorrow morning service is going to be held in our auditorium. We are really excited about that. I'm looking forward to that. Thankful that we have the opportunity to serve God, and I'm looking forward just to having everybody there and singing as one voice and singing to praise and honor our God. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow morning service. You won't want to miss it. To take opportunity to be and join us there at Northwoods Baptist Church. Thank you once again for taking the time to be with us this morning. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.